Oh yay, oh yay, oh yay. This session of the Gun Cranks is now in session. That's technical court stuff for hear you or something. But anyway, hey, it's the Gun Cranks. I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, along with American Handgunner editor Tom McHale and Roy Huntington, our special projects manager. Roy took a couple of weeks off there. We're not sure what he was doing, but he's back with us for a couple more weeks. So, Roy, were you doing something off in the jungles of Papua New Guinea or something?
You know, ask me if I know about COVID now.
Wow. Okay, that took an unhappy turn.
You know what I like about it is that I still have a bit of a hoarse voice, and we were joking about it, but now I can go, this is CNN.
Hey, give us a Luke, I am your father.
Luke, I am your father.
Well, that's good stuff. And we're going to kind of talk about something that's a little bit related to that, and that is how not to be a gun journalist or a YouTube influencer. We run across folks all the time that say, "Oh man, you guys have the greatest job in the world. I'd love to do that." And A, they're right, but B, you don't just do it. And we're going to talk about some of the things that we've seen, some of the things not to do if you are a budding gun journalist or YouTube influencer or whatever your particular flavor of media happens to be. So this program is in honor of Beaver Mouth. I'll just leave that at that. But Roy, you said you've got a pretty good story to lead us off.
You know, first of all, just because you have an iPhone and a Glock does not make you a firearms expert, okay? I don't mean to be ugly, but, you know, I know that's hard to believe, but it's the case. When I spent too many years as editor of American Handgunner magazine, and I rapidly learned to be very careful when you get a freelance gun writer who pitches you a story. And unless they have a bit of a track record, it's a bit like that. What is that? To get a union card, you need a job, but you need a job to get a union card, and you know what I mean. And so you almost need to have experience as a gun writer in order to get a job as a gun writer. So it was difficult in the old days when it was all print. But against my better judgment, I let this guy in the door, and he wrote an article about holsters, or it was something inconsequential, but it filled the niche that I had. And about 3 or 4 months later, after the article had come out, and I had not heard from him at all, which was good, I got a call from an AR-15 manufacturer saying, "Hey, you know, we're just making sure that this guy works for you." And I said, "Well, who?" And they gave me this name, and I kind of remembered the name, and I said, "Well, I mean, you know, why?" And he said, "Well, he's just ordered 15 various AR-15 rifles from us, and he said that he was going to have a cover feature and do some other articles for the different magazines there. We don't mind sending the guns out, but we just want to make sure that was true." And I was like going. So I put an end to that immediately, straightened him out, and then picked up the phone and called this famous budding gun writer, and he just was, you know, he thought there wasn't anything wrong with that at all. As a matter of fact, he told me he'd already had business cards made saying feature writer, American Handgunner, Guns Magazine, you know, so it's like, no. You know, just because if you're lucky enough to get an article or a video or something in, the rule is now you're very gracious and patient, and you don't hound the editor every day asking when it's going to be out and when's the check coming. And you don't call up manufacturers and say, "I'm a famous gun writer now, would you send me all kinds of free stuff?" So, all right.
You know, that was at the top of my list, Roy, and it falls under what my point number one was, which is pay your damn dues. I know people don't believe in that anymore, but I don't care if you're a union carpenter or a gun writer or, heaven forbid, a pilot. Pay your dues. You got to start at the bottom. You got to sweep the floors.
Especially
you got to write obituaries.
Pilot, right?
Exactly.
I want my pilots to have paid a lot of dues.
Exactly.
And there's something else here is that, and we have a really good team here. We have a newer member to our team, Nick. And Nick is a younger guy. He's, a lot newer to the gun business than we are. But Nick does something that I don't see too many of these influencers and young people do, which is he asks questions, or he says, I don't know about this. Could you tell me? Or could you tell me how I'm supposed to do this? And you know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that, because believe it or not, even we old people do that with each other. I mean, I was just talking to Tom McHale a minute ago, and I said, Tom, I learned a lot about that video you just did about using the foam and the suppressors. And so there's nothing wrong with not knowing everything, but what is it they say? Just stay within your lanes. So,
Roy, that is a great segue to my main point, because I was thinking about this before the show too. And first, I'm going to show you guys a graceful way to suck up to all our listeners and viewers. And here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to say, recognize that there are people in your audience, whether it's readers, viewers, watchers, listeners, whatever, a lot of people that know way more than you will ever know about the topics at hand. That's actually one of the fun things about this job, is I get mail and emails and all this stuff of people that know the most obscure, arcane stuff about minute details of gun history and firearms design and ammo, and it's just kind of fun. So I'm going to second your point of stay in your lane and be very careful, because I know I've strayed out of my lane by accident and maybe a little hubris a couple of times over my career, and it has a great way of biting you in the butt. The minute you do that, it's a very humbling experience. So.
And, going on to my next point, it still kind of wraps into what we've all been talking about to this point, but it's play the long game. If you want to be one of these big-time gun journalists or influencers or whatever, don't just worry about today. Worry about a year from now and 5 years from now, because believe it or not, it's a pretty small industry. You'll be working with the same folks, and that can be helpful or it can be hurtful. In my case, and I would think Tom and Roy would agree, and Nick's behind the board, he's shaking his head, it's the people you know. And in my case, I got a phone call one day from a guy named Roy Huntington I had met, a couple of years earlier, and he offered me the job of a lifetime. And it was simply because of networking and building your reputation. Other folks, because I'm sure Roy did a lot of phone calls to say, is this guy a clown or what? So you've got to get your reputation out there that you're well, we know that, but they were looking for a clown. As I've often said, they embrace my brand of stupidity, and I'm so thankful for that, especially every Tuesday when we get paid. But anyway,
you paid your dues in building that brand, I tell you. So
that's true. That's true.
You were a writer for what, 20 years?
Plus, yeah.
Plus an actual journalist, and so I agree 100% with what you're saying, and is that just take your time and pay the dues.
Can I tell the Beaver Mouth story now?
I'm a little nervous, but go for it. It's the internet.
Okay, let me preface this by saying, okay, we tend to poke fun at influencers, okay? Realizing influencers are kind of like the big part of the industry now, to some degree or another. And there's a lot of really good influencers out there. There's influencers we watch, YouTube channels we watch. We got a YouTube channel. But there's a lot of other ones, okay? And you've probably seen them if you've had the misfortune to be around them. Myself and our former video editor, Sherry Legate, were at a media event a couple of years ago, and it was mostly influencers. And there were some folks there I really enjoyed being around. They really knew their stuff. They were just good people. And then there was Beaver Mouth. And this person, she had been in the shooting industry at least 6 months. And she would tell you about it every time you talk to her. And it loses something with Sherry Legate not being here, because she does the Beaver Mouth thing, because she coined the term. This woman's, the hole in her head wasn't big enough for all the words to get out, and she just talked constantly, and her teeth kind of looked like beaver teeth.
Clacking.
Clacking. It was just, you could see her walk up to somebody and start, and people would just kind of and start slowly backing away. And the funny thing was, this person kept asking me, being the big time, gun editor, magazine editor, well, how do you do this? And how do you get in the industry? And how do you do this? It's like, shut up would be first on my list for you.
So that's your point. How to get in the industry is shut up? Is that...
Well, that's good advice.
You can avoid paying your dues if you shut up.
And the other thing...
2 ears, 1 mouth.
When you're at some event like that, and there's a group of people all in a half circle and they're talking with the company president or hosting or something, don't walk in front constantly and hold your iPhone on and take video of the person and block the people behind you and be oblivious to it, please. You know, that was, I got to tell one quick one. When the influencers were first starting years ago, Russ Thurman, the former publisher of Shooting Industry magazine, and I were in the press booth or the press room at the NRA show. And there were these strange creatures across from us, and they had short sleeve t-shirts on with spaghetti stains and, you know, short pants, and they all had headphones and multiple cameras and all kinds of video equipment and everything like that. And we couldn't help but overhear them, and they were saying, "I can't believe that guy wouldn't even talk to us." And the other guy said, "Yeah, that was really a bummer, man. He was really rude." And so we were listening, and Russ and I were like, "Who are these people? Why are they here?" And so we asked them, we said, "Well, what are you guys doing here?" And they said, "Oh, we're making some videos." Right? So we said, "Okay, and who wouldn't talk to you?" And he said, "Well, we were in the Smith & Wesson booth, and the president was there, but he wouldn't really talk to us." And Russ, you know Russ, right? Old Marine, you know, captain. He said, "Would you like some advice?" And they said, I think not really, but they were polite enough to say yes. And Russ said, "Well, dress and look and act the part. Don't be a bunch of goofballs, and maybe you'll get some respect." You know, and they just stared at us for a minute and then went back to doing what they were doing. You know,
yep.
So it was hopeless.
Well, I mean, our company, we have a reputation. We wear ties to industry events. And it just goes with that whole thing. If you're going to be a professional, you should look and act like a professional. And if you are going to be a professional journalist of whatever flavor, look and act like one. So, what do you think, guys? I think anybody's going to pay heed to what we're saying, or are they just going to grab their iPhone and go to town?
If they do use an iPhone, make sure that you never let it focus very well, and also move it a lot, and you know, and kind of point it at yourself every once in a while, and then back at what we can't see. That's critical.
I was
Tom, you were going to say
good lessons. I was going to actually refer to another social media account. It's a fantastic one called Influencers in the Wild. It is hilarious. We could do a whole show on it. Just trust me, it's worth your time.
And I just happen to think of one. If you use the word "I" every second sentence, you may want to think about that. So anyway, we could probably actually turn this into an hour-long program. We've kind of seen it all in our accumulated years in the industry, but just try and be a decent person and act like a professional. So make sure you check out AmericanHandgunner.com, GunsMagazine.com, AmericanCop.com, the Guns Magazine podcast, which you can check out on any of the podcast directories. And Tom, we've got a special edition. We've got one that's out and we got one that's coming out. Talk about that.
Yeah, DIY Gunsmithing is out right now. It's got a green cover, green blueprints on the front. You can't miss it. Fantastic tips and how-tos for reconstructing, finishing, polishing, and filing stuff. And it's a great excuse to buy more tools.
Don't forget, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube and leave us a comment down there. You can also reach Tom and I at editor@AmericanHandgunner.com or gunsmagazine.com. So, on behalf of the now back with us Roy Huntington and American Handgunner editor Tom McHale, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, and we will see you next episode.